What's a dream you had that later became reality? It wasn't the dream that scared me. It was how small it was, and how real. I dreamt of a watch. Simple, silver, the glass cracked clean across the face. In the dream, I picked it up off the pavement and turned it over, seeing the engraving on the back. For AL? A few months later, I was walking near Montmartre in Paris when I tripped on uneven cobblestones. When I looked down, there it was. The watch. Silver. Cracked glass. I picked it up, fingers trembling, and turned it over. For AL. There was no one nearby. No way to know how it got there. I kept it. It sits on my desk now, ticking faintly, a reminder that sometimes dreams aren't just dreams. Sometimes they're breadcrumbs, and sometimes they're invitations to pay closer attention. I dreamt about the fire alarm 3 nights in a row. In the dream, I was sitting in a classroom, one I didn't recognize, and the fire alarm shrieked, harsh and mechanical. Everyone filed out calmly except for one man. He sat frozen, staring at nothing, even as the smoke curled around him. I woke up uneasy, but brushed it off. 2 weeks later, I was attending a guest lecture at a university in Boston. Midway through the talk, the fire alarm went off. The shriek was exactly the same. Everyone stood up, moving toward the exits. I was halfway down the aisle when I saw him. A man still sitting, unmoving, blank-faced. It jolted something in me. The dream, vivid and sharp. I grabbed his arm and said, "Come on, man, let's go." No reaction. I yanked harder, and finally he blinked, stood up slowly, and stumbled after me. We were barely out of the building when smoke started pouring from a side door. It wasn't a drill. He didn't say much afterward, just looked at me, eyes wide, shook my hand hard, and walked away. I never saw him again. I still wonder if he would have made it out without that dream, or if some part of me knew he wouldn't. It wasn't a nightmare. More like a memory of something that hadn't happened yet. I kept dreaming about a face. A woman. Dark hair, green eyes, a small scar above her eyebrow. I saw her over and over, vivid and detailed, always in the same place. A crowded square, pigeons scattering, warm sunlight on stone. I don't even live in Europe. I chalked it up to some weird quirk of the brain, an image stuck on repeat. Then, 2 years later, I traveled to Barcelona on a whim. Wandering through Plaza Real one afternoon, camera slung over my shoulder, I saw her, sitting at an outdoor cafe, green eyes, dark hair, scar above the eyebrow. I must have stared because she looked up and smiled, like she recognized me too. I sat down. We talked about travel, books, the way Barcelona feels like a city out of time. It wasn't love at first sight. It wasn't anything dramatic, but it felt inevitable. We stayed in touch, traveled together, laughed about how strange life can be. When we tell people how we met, I usually leave out the dream part. It sounds too crazy. But sometimes you see someone before you see them. Grief does strange things to the mind. Dreams, too. After my grandfather passed away, I had a recurring dream. I was sitting at a wooden table in a pub I'd never seen before. He sat across from me, nursing a pint, smiling the way he used to when I did something dumb. "You're not listening," he said, tapping his finger on the table. I always woke up before I could answer. Months later, I took a trip to Ireland, partly for the scenery, partly because I didn't know what else to do with myself. Wandering through Dublin's winding streets one afternoon, I ducked into a pub to get out of the rain, and froze. It was the pub from my dream. Same wooden tables, same low ceilings, same worn bar. I sat at the nearest table, heart pounding. Engraved into the wood, just where he'd tapped in my dream, were the words, "Listen more, speak less." I sat there for a long time, not sure what to make of it. Was it coincidence? My grief playing tricks on me? Or was it something more, a final lesson from someone who knew I needed it? It was supposed to be a dream vacation. In a way, I guess it was. Before we left for Australia, I had a dream, standing on a beach, looking out at calm, endless water. Then a sudden wave, huge and fast, crashing toward me. I tried to run, but my feet were heavy, stuck. I woke up shaking. When we got to the Gold Coast, I recognized the beach immediately. The curve of the shore, the shape of the dunes. Same as the dream. The water looked harmless, flat, inviting. My friends ran ahead, laughing, tossing towels down. I hesitated, dream echoing in my mind. As I stood there, staring at the ocean, a lifeguard sprinted past me, whistle blaring. He waved frantically, pointing at the water. A rip current. We hadn't noticed the warning flags. The beach emptied fast. People stumbling out of the water. The current, invisible and deadly, churned beneath the surface. If I hadn't hesitated, if we'd gone straight in, we might not have made it out. Sometimes dreams don't just predict the future. Sometimes they save you from it. I don't usually remember my dreams, but this one stuck. I dreamt I was standing in a crowded station, faceless people rushing past, the loudspeaker crackling overhead. I was patting my pockets, frantic, knowing I'd lost something important. In the dream, a woman in a red coat walked up, held out a wallet, and said, "You'll need this." I woke up unsettled, brushed it off. Just a dream. A week later, rushing through Union Station in Chicago, I was running late, juggling coffee in my bag, weaving through crowds. When I boarded my train, I realized my wallet was gone. Panic set in. My ID, my cards, my cash, all vanished. I retraced my steps, heart sinking. And then, there she was, a woman in a red coat standing by the information booth, holding up a wallet. My wallet. She smiled, not in a creepy way, just a quiet, knowing smile, and handed it to me. "You'll need this," she said. I stared at her, stunned. She just nodded once, turned, and disappeared into the crowd. I never saw her again, but now every time I dream about something small and strange, I pay attention, just in case. Dreams about numbers don't usually mean much. Random, jumbled nonsense. Unless they don't. I kept dreaming of the same sequence, 317, over and over, night after night. Like my brain was stuck on repeat. It didn't feel urgent, just persistent. Background noise I couldn't tune out. I Googled it. Nothing. A Bible verse. A meaningless pattern, a bad lottery number. Eventually, I gave up trying to figure it out. A few months later, I traveled to Kyoto, a solo trip to clear my head after a rough breakup. Wandering through the city, I found myself at a shrine tucked away from the tourist crowds. Curious, I walked up to the main hall. At the entrance was a row of old stone steps, cracked, moss-covered, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. At the base was a plaque, established in 317 AD. I froze. Maybe it was a coincidence. Probably. But when I climbed those steps and stood at the top, looking out over the city, I felt something lift. The heaviness, the sadness I hadn't even realized I was still carrying. Sometimes numbers aren't just numbers. Sometimes they're directions, if you're paying attention. It wasn't a nightmare. It wasn't even scary. It was weird. I dreamt I was sitting on a train, an old one, not like the shiny modern cars in London. Wooden benches, brass fittings, a flickering overhead light. Across from me sat a man reading a newspaper. He never looked up. But I knew, somehow, that if he did, I wouldn't like what I saw. I woke up, shrugged it off, and didn't think about it again. 2 years later, I found myself on the tube, reading, half asleep after a long day. I changed lines, one of the older ones, and stepped onto a carriage that looked wrong. Wooden seats, brass fittings, flickering lights. I sat down, suddenly uneasy. Across from me sat a man, hidden behind a newspaper. The dream came flooding back, every detail sharp and undeniable. I stood up immediately and moved to the next carriage. I didn't look back. I didn't want to know. Maybe it was coincidence. An old, refurbished carriage. A tired commuter. That's the rational explanation. But sometimes, when the lights flicker just right, I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed. Some dreams you forget, others you can't, no matter how much you want to. A few months before it happened, I dreamt about the accident. In the dream, I was sitting at a red light, radio low, sunlight filtering through the windshield. I remember feeling calm, ordinary, like any other day. Then, screeching tires, a blur of metal. The world tipped sideways. I woke up sweating, heart pounding, but chalked it up to stress. I was working overtime, barely sleeping. Bad dreams were just part of the package. Then, weeks later, I was driving through downtown Vancouver, late for a meeting. The sky a clean, cloudless blue. I pulled up to a red light. The same song from my dream was playing on the radio. One of those pop songs you hate but can't escape. For a second, everything lined up. The angle of the sunlight, the shape of the street. Déjà vu hit me like a punch. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw it. A car coming too fast. Way too fast. Without thinking, I threw the car into drive and shot forward, tires squealing. The car behind me barreled through the red light and smashed into the intersection, exactly where I had been. If I hadn't moved, it would have T-boned me, full force. I sat there shaking, watching people run to help. I still wonder, was it a warning? A glimpse of what could have been? Or just a dream? Random, meaningless, until it wasn't. It was the kind of dream you shake off with a laugh, until it stops being funny. I was 12 when I first dreamt about the house. A 2-story colonial, pale yellow with peeling paint, a sagging porch, and windows like dark, watching eyes. In the dream, I stood at the bottom of a cracked driveway, staring at it. No matter how much I wanted to move, I couldn't. Every few months, the dream would come back. Always the same house, the same feeling, not fear exactly, but something heavier. Like I was supposed to be there but didn't want to be. Years passed. The dream faded into one of those childhood memories you don't revisit unless something triggers it, like a road trip through Vermont with my college roommate. We were heading to a hiking trail, winding through sleepy towns and dense woods when we passed it. The house. Exactly as I had dreamt it. Pale yellow, peeling paint, sagging porch. I felt the breath leave my lungs. "Stop the car," I said. We pulled over. I got out, legs shaky. My roommate called after me, but I barely heard him. I walked up the cracked driveway, my sneakers crunching on gravel. The air smelled of damp earth and something older, mustier. The porch creaked under my weight. Up close, the house looked worse. Broken shutters, rotting wood, empty, abandoned. I don't know why I knocked. Some part of me thought maybe, just maybe, there was something waiting inside. Someone. But no one answered. I pressed my hand against the door. It was warm somehow, despite the chill in the air. And then, a whisper. Faint, almost lost in the wind. "Welcome back." I staggered away, heart hammering, stumbled back to the car. My roommate laughed nervously. What was that all about? I didn't have an answer then. I'm not sure I do now. We drove away, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror. I never dreamt about it again.